Welcome to TV Tennessee Valley Church. This is the popular Bubby's Diner in South Huntsville. Today, the day we're shooting this, is Bubby's 1-year anniversary. I'm having the Bubby Burger, a grilled glazed donut with beef, bacon, and cheese. It's delicious. Pleasure on a plate. Today's topic, by the way, is gluttony. We're in the 5th week of the series on the 7 deadly sins. Over 1,500 years ago, Christian thinkers began to observe there are some fundamental root sins, transgressions, out of which they believed all other sins grow. Greed, envy, lust, sloth, anger, pride, and today's topic, gluttony. None of the other deadly sins get as many jokes and get less serious attention than gluttony. The very word sounds old-fashioned. It conjures up, at least for me, images of an ancient, rotund king with a drumstick in each hand, his chin dripping with grease, leaning over a table piled with every kind of culinary temptation imaginable. But gluttony is not just the vice of obese medieval kings. Gluttony can be a problem for us all. Let me say early on here, everyone who is overweight is not a glutton. There are certainly medical reasons for some of our struggles with weight. The fact that someone struggles with their weight is not a sign that that person is a glutton. Furthermore, a feast is not a sin. There's a time for fasting and a time for feasting. If you, for example, never have had a donut bacon cheeseburger, then you haven't lived. I think Jesus would enjoy a Bubby burger from time to time. Jesus enjoyed feasts and parties so much that his detractors, folks wound way too tight, called him a glutton and a drunkard. Obviously, he was not a glutton and a drunkard, but he did enjoy a celebratory meal with his friends. However, before you plan your next trip to the all-you-can-eat buffet, remember that continual overeating is indeed the sin of gluttony. To splurge from time to time is fine, but if you splurge all the time, it's no longer a splurge, it's a lifestyle, and an unhealthy one, and a sinful one. So, we're not talking about medical reasons for which some people are overweight, and we're not talking about enjoying a donut burger every once in a while. We're talking about gluttony. And gluttony, real live gluttony, is a sin. Anything we do to harm our bodies is sinful, including stuffing them regularly. Now, it would be obviously hypocritical of me to suggest that the only thing you should eat is tofu and Brussels sprouts. I can, though, in good conscience, suggest that we eat sensibly and in moderation. You might be wondering, as I did, why the early Christian thinkers would say gluttony is one of the 7 deadly sins. You know, basic root sins, right up there with lust and greed and such. Is eating too much really that bad? Well, gluttony has to do with more than our daily caloric intake. Gluttony is a much bigger issue than food consumption. Gluttony is an excessive appetite for pleasure, any kind of pleasure. The root of the word gluttony, of course, is glut. Glut simply means excess or too much. A glut in the oil market means too much oil has been produced and the supply exceeds the demand. A glut of information is too much information overload. A glut of houses means there are so many houses in an area it's hard to sell one. Glut means too much. Gluttony, then, is not limited to fatty steaks and chocolate cakes. Gluttony goes far beyond the sin of too much food. It's too much anything. Gluttony is an excessive appetite for pleasure, any kind of pleasure. Gluttony is excess indulgence, self-gratification, extravagance to the point of waste. Gluttony involves food, alcohol, money, television, social media, video games, shopping, or a lack of moderation in anything. That's why gluttony is a deadly sin. Gluttony is a form of hedonism. And hedonism, the pursuit of pleasure, the reckless and irresponsible pursuit of whatever makes me feel good, is endangering our society. The obsession with pleasure is obvious in a number of areas. In the homes and cars we buy that we really can't afford, so we're going into deep and dangerous debt. The credit card debt, that's just going crazy. But nowhere is hedonism on more obvious display than in our sexuality. The so-called free love movement of the 1960s was an expression of hedonism, irresponsible pleasure. The birth control pill made sex without fear of pregnancy a reality and fueled the almost limitless pursuits of physical intimacy. The so-called sexual revolution was not a positive development. Look at the curse of pornography, the rise in sexually transmitted diseases, the number of unwanted pregnancies and abortions, the broken lives and hearts resulting from promiscuity, and so on. Today, the sexual revolution launched in the 60s continues in ways that not so long ago would have been considered only rare deviations. An example of that is polyamory, a growing trend whereby more than two people are in a committed, physically intimate relationship. A January 31st article in the Washington Post tells the story of a throuple who lives in Chattanooga. Yes, a throuple, a couple made up of 3 people. Janie, Maggie, and Cody, 2 ladies and a man, are an example of this increasingly common polyamory. In this case, Cody and Maggie are married, and Janie is both Cody's girlfriend and Maggie's. The 3 live together in a home with 2 bedrooms, and each night they decide what the sleeping arrangement will be. And polyamory is spreading. 2 weeks ago, a book by Rachel Kranz went on sale, titled Open, an uncensored memoir of love, liberation, and non-monogamy, a polyamory memoir. The book joins a long list of countless articles and at least 15 books that I found on the topic, most published in the last 3 years. Maggie, a member of that throuple in Chattanooga, said, "We're helping other people see what this kind of relationship looks like. We're sort of normalizing it." And there, in the normalizing of this, lies the problem. There always have been practices that culture viewed as deviant, unhealthy, marginal, wrong, shameful. But when those practices become normalized, mainstreamed, even celebrated, then the culture is in trouble. I believe it's what the Bible is warning us about in Philippians 3 when it says, they glory in their shame. Things we should be ashamed of, we glorify, normalize, mainstream, and celebrate. This gluttonous, hedonistic, irresponsible pursuit of what makes us feel good is unhealthy for our world. Carl Bates, one of my seminary teachers, said, God has seen to it that no one headed down the wrong path ends up at the right place. That phrase has come back to me, and I've seen it proven true lots of times since then. God has seen to it that no one headed down the wrong path ends up at the right place. At the risk of sounding like a doomsday prophet, in many ways our culture is headed down the wrong path. God's plan really is the best for us, whatever the topic. For example, on February the 5th, just a few days ago, there was an article in the Wall Street Journal titled, "Too Risky to Wed in Your 20s? Not if you avoid cohabiting first." The article read, "Marrying without having lived together with a partner makes for some of the lowest divorce rates." Imagine that. Not living together before marriage makes for a better marriage. Now, that's not an article in Sunday school literature, but the Wall Street Journal is saying what the Bible always has said, that passion can reach its potential only within the covenant relationship of a man and woman who have said, I forsake all others and will keep myself only for you, and you won't have to worry about that till death do us part. But this is not a message about inappropriate physical relationships. That's simply one example of gluttony, of hedonism, of the reckless and irresponsible pursuit of whatever makes us feel good. It boils down to this: our Creator, who loves us with a love beyond our imagination, sets standards for us, guidelines for the best living of life. One of those standards is, don't engage in excess, don't worship pleasure, enjoy God's gifts from food to physical intimacy within the boundaries that God sets for us. That means recognizing there are things so important to us, like our families, our health, our self-respect, and our relationship with God. So important to us that we won't sacrifice them on the altar of temporary and insignificant pleasures. More about that in a few minutes.
Peace, bring it all to peace. The storm surrounding me, let it break. At your name still, call the sea to still, the raging me to still, every wave. At your name, Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, you silence fear. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, breathe, call these bones to live, call these lungs to sing once again. I will praise Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, you silence fear. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, oh, Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, you silence fear. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, your name is a light that the shadows can't deny. Your name cannot be overcome. Your name is alive, forever lifted high. Your name cannot be overcome. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, you silence fear. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, 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 'cause your name is a light that the shadows can't deny. Your name cannot be overcome. Your name is alive, forever lifted high. Your name cannot be overcome.
Welcome back to Bubby's Diner. We're honored to be here today. Thank you so much on your first anniversary.
Thank you.
Now, Chris Belcher's the owner here. Who opens a restaurant during COVID?
Well, it was already being built, so we were in too deep to not open.
No backing out, huh?
Yeah.
Your staff has been with you throughout this year. How have you kept the staff? So many people have had trouble doing that. How have you done it?
About a fourth of the staff is family, so that helps. And then several friends of the family, and then just people that we work with over the years that I think enjoy working here and enjoy working with us. And so we've been blessed.
Why 50s theme?
I love milkshakes. It's my favorite thing to
me
eat.
too.
So, that was a no-brainer. Malts, milkshakes, burgers, fries. It's just my type of eating. So,
And the music's great too.
Yep,
Had the
it is.
jukebox playing
It
in the
is.
background.
yeah.
One hot thing on your menu is the Krispy Kreme bacon cheeseburger.
Yes.
How did that come about?
So we don't use a Krispy Kreme donut, actually. But it's not quite as sweet. But I was watching Food Network about 14, 15 years ago and saw it on there and decided, oh man, we got to cook that for the kids, and cooked them for the kids. And then throughout the years, I would cook them for the folks in my previous
Restaurant days.
life.
Yeah.
We would cook them for the staff, and people would just rant and rave over them, and people would say, man, you need to open a restaurant and serve these. And so
And so that's what you
it's
did.
just so we were just wanting to add something kind of unique.
Well, Pastor
the
Travis had one. He said that it's great.
It is good.
You have a few things on the menu that are family recipes,
Yeah.
like the bacon jam.
Yep, that's my sister's recipe. The pimento cheese burger, my mom's biscuit recipe, her gravy recipe, all that's made from scratch here. So
Travis is preaching on gluttony today, and we've all have full stomachs after eating here today.
yep,
What's your favorite thing on the menu?
my favorite thing is the pimento cheeseburger
Nice.
or the Philly cheesesteak. No.
It's a toss, right?
Yeah, it's hard to choose sometimes.
And plenty of ice cream too.
So we got really good catfish too.
Nice.
So now I'm hungry.
Well, it's almost time to eat again.
Yep.
Chris, I got to ask, how did Bubby's Diner, how did you get the name?
So when I was in the 7th grade, my sister was about 2 years old, and I went to a small Christian school here in town. And her and my mom were walking by my classroom, and my sister saw me and yells, Bubby. The whole class stopped, started dying. There's about 20 people in my class. Half of them were girls. So 7th grade, just starting to like girls. The name stuck with me through the rest of high school.
So your sister probably didn't know that she named a restaurant.
She didn't, not at the time.
Thanks a lot, Chris.
You're welcome.
Gluttony is an attempt to fill an emptiness more profound than an empty belly. Gluttony is an attempt to satisfy ourselves with things that don't satisfy. Our daughter Brennan and her family have a wonderful chocolate lab named Charley. Charley has had more orthopedic surgeries than I've had. He's had 3 shoulder surgeries. When our kids were small, we had a hamster named Little Red. Little Red developed a cancerous tumor on his head. I thought I should just take him out and, let Little Red spend the rest of his days in the woods. Our little girl, Brennan, wouldn't hear of it. I had to take him to the vet to be euthanized. Yes, I paid for a hamster to be euthanized. You see, animals have the same diseases humans have. Animals have bone disease and joint problems. They have cancer, they have blood diseases and eye diseases. But they don't have addictions. Animals have most every category of disease we humans have, but animals don't become addicts. Some lab animals, when their brains are injected with certain chemicals, will eat or drink excessively. But in their natural environment, animals don't find substances that alter their perception of reality and become addicted to those substances. Abraham Tversky, in an important book titled Addictive Thinking, pondered why that is. By the way, Addictive Thinking is not a so-called religious book. Abraham Tversky's answer is this: animals have the same physical urges and desires that humans do, But animals do not have spiritual longings. Humans crave spiritual fulfillment, and even when we can't articulate it, we feel it. We know it when something is missing. Addictive thinking, Tversky said, can lead people to try and quench our spiritual craving through food or drugs or sex or money, things that give some gratification but do nothing to solve the basic problem. Many people in recovery have said, I realized that empty space I felt is where God belonged. The reckless and irresponsible pursuit of whatever makes us feel good, whether it's food or physical intimacy, cars we can't afford or drinking to excess, will not satisfy the ultimate longings of our souls. Only Jesus can do that. The gospel song, it turns out, is right. Only Jesus can satisfy your soul.
All the poor and powerless, all the lost and lonely, all the thieves will come confess and know that you are holy, and know that you are holy, and all will sing out hallelujah, and we will cry out hallelujah. All the hearts who are content, all who feel unworthy, all who heard with nothing left, will know that you are holy, and all will sing out hallelujah, and we will cry out hallelujah, and all will sing out hallelujah, and we will cry out hallelujah. Hallelujah. Shout it, go on and scream it from the mountains. Go on and tell it to the masses that He is God. Shout it,
Crying out. Tennessee Valley Church means church has left the building. So has membership. Here's what I mean. You might be feeling a need or maybe even a call from God to be part of our church family in a more tangible way. If you're not able to join us physically here at 600 Governors Drive, whether because of distance, mobility, schedule, or some other reason, you still can be a member of First Baptist Huntsville. Let me send you information on what that would mean, what you could expect from your church, and what your church would expect from you. Email me at travis@fbchsv.org. Let me know of your desire for membership, and I'll help you get started. Join hands with us as we attempt to join hands with God Himself in His mission to the world.
We thank you, sir.
Gluttony.